Welcome to the voice tic-tac-toe tutorial number 1. So the objective of this tutorial is to learn some browser voice recognition API methods and some DOM manipulation, a few other things as well. So the code challenge here is to create a simple website that listens to your spoken words, displays those words, and speaks them back to you. So I've got outlined a few steps here on the GitHub page. Okay, great. So let's get started. First thing I want to do is create a directory with a few empty files. Okay, great. Open this up in VS Code. That's the editor I'm using. Already done that. The first thing we want to do is we want to tie in the index CSS, index.js to the HTML. VS Code has got some nice little snippets. So you can see I can just do this and I can have the boilerplate code inserted for me. All right, so let's add the script tag that takes a source attribute, index.js, and the style sheet. Let's add a div. This is where we're going to display the spoken text. We also need a button. Great. Let's add some CSS. And let's add a little bit of JavaScript. All right. Let's open this up in the browser. Okay, great. So we have our console log here. So the JavaScript is working correctly. We have green placeholder text. So this is also working. And then we've got a button that currently doesn't do anything. All right. So let me introduce a little bug here so we can talk about some important things. So let's say that I want to get a hold of that DOM element. So let's do const. Okay. And we want to change the text on that element. So let's try this out. Okay. So what happened here? We have this error. Let's go to the debugger, put a breakpoint, and refresh. If I hover over this, speech display is null. What? So we didn't find the div. Let's take a look at the DOM. Oh, I see. So there is no div here. There's no body. The way that the browser works is that it will parse the DOM, and when it reaches a script tag like this, it will fetch it, download it, and execute it. And this is why we don't have that available. All right, so let's try to fix this. Okay, let's try it again. All right, we change the text and we have no error. This could have also been done with window and load. Let's try that. And that also works. The problem with load is that this does not get fired until after not only the DOM being parsed, but also images and style sheets being downloaded as well. So it's slower. It's better practice to use the other method. Let's go back. It's kind of ugly though to have to add this listener here. I would like to have it cleaner if that was not there. So what are some other options that we can use? We can go to the HTML, take this script tag, and put it at the bottom, just before the body tag closes right there. And now let's refresh. Okay, so it's working. Our code is cleaner. You can see the script is at the bottom. So this works, and this is pretty cross-browser solution. Older browsers would you might want to do it this way, but there's a problem. Since I mentioned that the parsing of the DOM is synchronous, it was happening. We're parsing DOM synchronously. Then we make the call to get the JavaScript file, and then we execute it. So in a larger application, when we want the site to be responsive and first load to happen quickly, this wouldn't be the best way. So what else can we do to improve this? Okay, so let's move this back. I want this to run async. Well, there's an attribute for that. So if I run this as async, what's going to happen is the DOM will be parsed and the file will also be downloaded asynchronously. Try that. Okay, so it looks like we're working. We see no error. Everything's fine. But I just introduced another bug because this is actually running asynchronously, and it just happens to be that this DOM loads really quickly because it's pretty small. Let me show you what happens when I add more DOM elements. And now let's refresh. Let's try this again. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, hard refresh. And not every time. So you see, intermittent bug. So we don't want to do this. This wouldn't be a problem if in our JavaScript, if we weren't trying to get a hold of DOM elements, then this would be fine. The solution will be okay. But what we want is something different. So let's go back to this. We do want to have a script tag at the head of the document like this, but we want defer. So what defer is going to do is going to parse the DOM and download the JavaScript file at the same time asynchronously. However, it won't execute the JavaScript until just before the DOM content loaded has occurred. And so that's what we want. So basically we get the benefit of having the parsing at the same time and the downloading at the same time, but then without the error. We don't want to execute until the right time. And so this would be probably the best way to do this. So let's go ahead and try this. Okay, let's do another hard refresh. Okay, looks like we're pretty good now. It is a lot of DOM. All right. Let's remove. Another little problem that we have here is, and notice how I opened up that HTML directly in the browser like this, and it's pointing to this file. Even though this seems okay, it's not going to be working for very long. There's several dev web servers you can use. This is the one that I'm using. So you have to have Node and npm installed. We do npm install http. And I like this globally so that I can use it on any project. I already installed it. So let's just go ahead and execute this. By default, it's going to look for a public folder. Yeah. And then it's going to execute the index.html. I do want to change the port because by default it uses port 8080 and I want to use something else. Great. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's get into some speech API. We want to get the class for the speech recognition that's available in the browser. By default, what happens is once the speech recognition is started and it hears the first phrase, it stops. So I want to be able to continually speak something, pause, speak something, and I want it to keep displaying. So that's why we're setting this property to true. So we want to initialize this. This will get called after every time that we speak. So we have now set up some properties. We have initialized the callback for the on results. However, we still need to start the speech recognition so I can start listening. So I want to have a button to do that. And it's going to call this method start. And then that's all it's going to do. Yep. Mistake. This button needs to call on click, like so. Now can you hear me? Excellent. And then let's add a little bit more here. So now what we want to do is we want it to not only display those words, but we want it to speak back. So first thing I got to do is I'm going to stop listening because I don't want it to turn into an infinite loop where it speaks and it repeats what it said and on and on and on. So let's say stop. And then we want to call a new method speak. We want to give it the transcript. It takes a special object. We're going to just name it utter this. And we pass it the text. This also has an on-end event. What we want to do is we want to turn voice recognition back on after it has spoken the words. Let's see, I think that looks good. Can you hear me?
You hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Are you my friend?
You're my friend.
All right, guys. That's awesome. We got this working. Catch you on the next episode.
And guys, that's awesome. We got this working. Catch you on the next episode.